Welcome to Radio Psychotropia, cinema for the criminal in you.
Hello and welcome to Radio Psychotropia. I'm your host, Robert Black. And with me is Conrad Del Bianco.
How's it going, everybody?
Much of the 1990s was a dismal decade for Italian genre cinema. Many of the established talents stumbled with mediocre films, apathetic audiences, and scathing critical reception. The funding dried up, and the next generation of Italian genre filmmakers simply never appeared, leaving a once thriving film scene strangely absent on the world stage. Bava, Suovi, Fulci, Argento, all of them, slowed down, vanished, or began working in television. It wasn't until well into the new century that many young filmmakers, devoid of any established industry contacts or official support, began to appear. Usually working on the fringe of the Italian film industry, many like Ivan Zuccon, Alex Infaselli, and Stefano Bessoni are openly striving to reclaim the vacant Italian genre crown. One other bright filmmaker is Lorenzo Bianchini. His debut feature, 2001's The Square Root of Three, utilized local regional mythology combined with classic Italian horror tropes to create a unique tale of students who find a satanic cult operating out of their high school's basement. Bianchini's second film, 2004's Keeper of the Beasts, takes a more mature journey and delves into hidden mysteries and Lovecraftian horrors. His most recent film, Across the River, is quite possibly his most atmospheric and accomplished. Very minimalist in scope and extremely modest in budget, it nonetheless captures the viewer's attention while simultaneously mining our primal sense of dread by placing us in the path of the horror with the film's protagonist with no room for escape. We experience it with him, and that makes it seem all the more authentic to us. This is what a horror film is meant to do: leave an indelible impression after the credits roll, and nightmares after the midnight hour. Mr. Del Bianco, can we have a synopsis of Across the River, please?
Sure thing. Ethologist Marco Contrada, played by Marco Marchese, arrives in the remote wilderness near the Italian-Slovenian border. Living out of a caravan, he conducts his regular wildlife survey, which includes trapping animals and strapping cameras onto them to track their nocturnal behavior. What he finds disturbs him: bones and assorted viscera. Something stalks these remote woods, injuring foxes and savaging wild boars. Something that hasn't shown up on his camera footage. His research takes him across a shallow river to the crumbling remains of a deserted village. Soon enough, Marco finds the source of the animal killings: two small mysterious figures who show up on his night vision footage. Marco has no idea what happened in this village decades ago. He doesn't know that two little girls lived here during the Second World War. He doesn't know that the girls' neighbors feared them and whispered rumors of witchcraft. He doesn't know what happened to the girls when the soldiers came. All he knows is that when heavy rains fall and the river floods, he is trapped here with the savage, spectral, screaming creatures who slaughter the local wildlife. Help does come for Marco in the form of the local constabulary. Can they save him? Let alone save themselves.
Conrad, this was a very atmospheric and very chilling film, especially if you see it late at night. There's not a whole lot going on during the course of the film, but it really ratchets up the tension in the latter third. What did you think of it?
Absolutely. I mean, this film is saturated in dread. It offers no relief, which is fine for the most part. I immensely enjoy visual storytelling. The suspense and dread are so thick, and the film is so rife with them, that it's hard to find any relief. It is not offered up. There's a lot of beauty in the melancholic way the film opens up, and I have to give a nod to the film's score and cinematography, which blend very well to achieve this effect.
Well, we're thrown into a mystery. We're introduced to Marco as he arrives in the forest in the middle of the Friuli region in northern Italy, and he's there to catalog the local wildlife. While he's doing that, he comes across a very peculiar happenstance. Bones, and the bones themselves contain bite marks that are very strange to him. And he tries to figure out, for the next little while, what exactly made these bone marks. He makes a note that it's not unlike any predator that he has encountered in the region.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how Bianchini just pops us into what is really a very banal existence with this man, obviously from the local university, who's there to catalog the local wildlife, and then sort of develops a supernatural mystery as the film progresses. Now, there's really not much interaction between Marco and his environment. He goes in there and he simply observes his surroundings. He takes photographs, he captures a few animals, checks them for injuries, he tags them, lets them go, and over and over and over. It's a very clinical type of procedure that we're exposed to.
Yeah,
But as the film progresses, Bianchini sort of throws us a little bit more substance, where we find out a little bit more of the mystery that's going on. And the real turning point is when Marco is next to the river and he notices what looks like a white shawl in the river.
Yeah, that's right. There's two of them that are
Right.
floating down the river.
Right.
It's two sort of like nightgowns, really, or like for children.
And he really doesn't make any note of that other than he
It's kinda
looks
weird.
at it.
Yeah.
He goes on from there to check on a fox that he captured and let go. He does make a note that the fox was attacked by an unknown predator. He manages to put a camera, a micro, I guess a GoPro or something like that,
GoPro camera
on
his
the
leash or
fox.
whatever, yeah.
And that's where Bianchini throws in some found footage.
I thought
You know.
those scenes were very effective.
Yeah, extremely effective. I haven't really seen, other than maybe a segment of the second VHS film, any footage where an animal, or we see any video footage from an animal perspective.
Right.
In VHS 2 it was a dog, in this it was a captured fox, and that's pretty intriguing. It would seem that Del Bianco's cat wants to comment on the film.
Yeah,
He
just found
she
a
just
piece
not
of
yeah she just knocked over a
an extension
it?
for the mic. Which,
So earlier on, I actually asked the cat if she wanted to comment on the podcast. It would appear that she's motioning to do so. Do you want to say anything, Valeria? No? Okay.
that's not unlike what
I guess
happens
your
in
comment-
the actual film.
That's
There's
right.
Quite a few moments where you just hear a sound,
Right.
and it just kind of,
It just sort of lingers there. And it's up to the viewer's imagination to actually
Figure it
discern
out, yeah.
exactly what the meaning is of it. There's also a motif that's reoccurring throughout the film involving water. Now,
Yeah, you mentioned that this may have been lifted from another film.
yeah,
That,
a Japanese film, but I think it goes way back to Mario Bava and a segment in an anthology he directed, and I believe the segment was called A Drop of Water. However, the Japanese has this theme about water. I believe it's supposed to represent some sort of spiritual form at one point or another, and it does reoccur throughout this film, and it denotes a supernatural presence. So I would say that yes, Bianchini probably saw Dark Water or some earlier film, and he thought, wow, that's really cool, let me use that. But
More
it
than
works.
likely-
He utilizes it very well in this.
More than likely, you caught the Italian reference because, I mean, being from Italy, you would know about Bava's work, right?
Right, very, yeah. I would assume that he would.
Now, it's the same thing as the water dripping denotes a spiritual presence. Is it the same as as cold temperatures in a room?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So the same kind of idea.
Well, we find out later that the two young girls drowned in the river. Or we assume that they drowned in the river. We don't actually visually see it in a flashback, but
Well, we do see her.
it's,
their
yeah,
clothing
it's
go
greatly
down the river.
implied. It's
Yeah.
greatly implied that they drowned. So,
Plus, it was known that that time that the Catholic Church would drown witches.
yeah, that's
And if they
very
floated-
true.
They weren't witches.
That's right. I think actually, Conrad, if they floated,
Oh,
they were witches,
and if they
and if they
actually
drowned, they were actual Christians.
too
But the
late.
thing is, too late.
Too late.
They're already dead, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they have a funny way of doing things, don't they?
Yes, they do. I'm glad they don't do it anymore. Maybe other religions carry that tradition on, but I don't think the Catholic Church does that anymore. After the fox is tagged, we follow it on a screen in Marco's trailer
That's
for
right.
a while.
And yeah, it actually goes into the village that Marco ends up in later in the film.
Right.
And it goes into an area underneath one of the buildings. And I believe at that point it gets cut off. But what happens next in the film is that Marco actually goes, not to his RV, but he goes to one of these, like a little small cabin in the woods.
Right.
And he spends the night there. During that night, he's awakened to a scream. All right, and
Right.
that pierces the night. Now,
Mhm.
concurrently, there's also someone else that is awakened as well. There's an old man, supposedly somewhere near, but not right in that
Well, I
area.
believe he's on the border between Slovenia and northern Italy.
Yeah. So wherever this old man is, he's also Italian. We find that out after, but he's in another area, and he's also awakened to the scream, and he goes to the window to investigate. So does Marco, okay,
Right.
but nothing's made of it.
There is a parallel story going on.
Yes.
The old man and that of Marco.
Yeah.
And eventually they intersect. Initially the old man explains to his wife, who wants him back to bed, what it is out there that so concerns him.
He does?
Well, he does say that there's something out there, that he should be aware of,
Right. Okay.
okay, or be concerned about.
Right.
He doesn't really elaborate to the wife,
No.
because what old man really elaborates to his wife, anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But from there on, we know that there is a connection about what's going on with Marco and what the old man has either experienced
Yeah.
or knows.
Yeah. Knows about that scream.
Right.
That's right. After the observation of the footage, Marco decides that he's going to to track down the source of where the fox ended up. Okay,
Right.
He's going to try to. He's configured it. He's triangulated it. He's figured out where the fox has ended up on his map. Packs up his gear and he goes. And what he does is he comes across a river, right? That is a fairly low river, and there is a sort of like a stone road that goes through it. However, it is submerged by about a foot or so, and he still decides that he's gonna, carry on and drive through there. He almost gets stuck, but he makes it through, makes it across to the other side,
Right.
and gets to a certain point where the road ends, and he has to continue on foot. He finds the area where he believes the fox has gone into, according to what he saw on his video footage. He looks around the village for a bit.
I would take one good look at this village and hightail it the fuck out of there. It looks like it's straight out of Silent Hill. Okay?
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
very
talking about the
spooky.
video game and the movie, people. You don't want to fucking be caught in this village after dark.
Yeah, it's-
you want to get the hell out of
We're
there.
talking
But
narrow,
Marco,
narrow hallways, old creaking doors.
well, it's more than that. Don't take into account that the whole damn place is probably populated by snakes, by boars, by things that would probably want to eat you. The buildings are collapsing, and they can collapse at any point. What does Marco do, Conrad?
He goes into them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they were built by Italians, Rob. Those buildings are not going to collapse. I don't know what you're talking about, but I saw some of the stonework there. My dad was a stonemason, okay? And I
Yeah.
looked at some of the stonework, and it looked very, very solid. Supposedly, there's some areas that are not so well built.
I don't
but-
know, Conrad. He gets stuck in a couple of situations there, if you recall. How old was that village?
Very old.
Very, very old.
Yeah.
So eventually these buildings come down, and those pieces of stone looked very heavy.
Yes. There was it was a little bit surprising that you could find something like that in the hills abandoned, because it's not, there has to be a story about that right away. Right off the
Right.
bat, something's got to raise a red flag and say to you, hey, why is this place abandoned?
That should be the red flag,
That's
which
the red flag.
indicates get the fuck out.
Yeah. Get out! Too bad we can't stay. Yeah. He doesn't. He's now. We obviously know a little bit about this character so far, that he's a loner, right? That he works alone. He works with animals, so not a lot of conversation.
Right.
Okay. He's somewhat fearless, because he goes out and
Very fearless.
You know-
But he wants to know what happened to his fox, and he wants to retrieve his camera.
Yeah. And so he basically, I think he sets up a couple cameras and a couple of traps or snares, and then he goes back to the RV.
Well, from what I can recall, he fell asleep. Now he's awoken by what?
Dripping.
Water dripping down onto him.
Yes. In the
Now,
RV.
yeah, in the RV, and yet there's no source of this water.
That was a confusing scene, and I'll tell you why. He did not look for the source. There was not a scene of him looking to see, hey, maybe there's a leak in my RV, right? The
Well,
RV
that would
looks
make
fairly
no sense.
new anyway.
Yeah, looks new. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like decrepit or anything. He's working for the government, I'm assuming. If he's doing this type of work,
Right.
he's not in the private sector doing this.
Right.
Okay, tracking animals. So you would think that they would have a scene of him maybe looking around, where's this water? My first concern, if
I guess he probably figured that he washed his face, he went to bed, and he didn't realize there was still water on his face.
Okay.
Okay, well, it's an explanation.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
all right.
All right.
So he's awoken, and he's awoken to images on his monitor.
There was that was a great scene, actually. When he's watching the video monitor, he's watching different animals react to a sound, right? And then he sees this one image of something just slightly behind a tree. All right, you see
And
this-
how it moves just slightly, then
Just-
goes
way,
out of sight.
Yeah, in a way that it's almost peeking
Right.
around the tree,
Mhm.
like looking, and then there's a flash, a couple of figures, small white figures running off, and that was spooky.
In Japanese films, I've seen some similar scenes to that.
Right.
So obviously,
yeah.
the whole Japanese angle must be some sort of influence on Bianchini. Maybe the water motif, as you said, is an
Might
influence
be.
of Mario Bava.
Yeah.
But here on in, you can tell that Marco doesn't know exactly what the hell to make of the footage that he just captured.
He doesn't know if he might even be thinking it's pranksters. He's not thinking the surreal at this point.
No, he's thinking, you know what, there's a couple of little girls out there. They're playing tricks on me.
Right.
But he is concerned, wants to investigate this further. I don't know exactly why he wouldn't just hightail it out of there at
This
this
guy
point.
has
and
balls
say,
of steel.
well,
Okay.
he's a scientist. I can explain his curiosity. He's a scientist, so he's intrinsically curious. That part we have down
Sure,
pat.
I can buy that.
Well, you have to buy it. Okay, he's out there in the woods by himself, researching animal behavior. So obviously he's curious about what exactly goes on in the forest day to day.
A few times that he goes into the village to investigate, and he seems to go and explore a little bit further each time.
Right.
One time it's in one building, another he's going upstairs and checking out these other bedrooms and things. There's a scene where he finds an old watch
Right.
in a drawer. He just finds a few things, finds some pictures, finds a watch, winds it up, and nothing happens with it. And right then he looks at himself in the mirror, on the dresser mirror, and there's water running down the mirror, which distorts the image of his face.
Right.
And he gets freaked out by that and
Yeah.
runs out.
Well,
of
that's
there.
foreshadowing for us. For him, subconsciously, he probably took it as some sort of omen.
That he shouldn't be touching this watch, or he should.
Well, he shouldn't be there, period.
Yeah.
That's why he panics and gets the hell out. Unfortunately, he doesn't get out of the village. He sticks around and starts exploring. And that includes going under buildings as well, if you recall.
Yes.
I don't know if that made any sense, because those buildings can collapse on you. I'm sorry, but they can, Conrad.
Yeah.
We don't know how old they are. From there on, he finds more and more to the mystery. The turning point is he goes into a particular room in one of the houses and finds sheets hanging everywhere. They're all bloodied.
Yes, they're all bloodied, and he finds bones in the center of the room somewhere within the few layers of sheets. He finds
Right.
some rather large bones.
And if you recall, he makes a note that the bones contain the same
Gnaw
bite marks
Yes.
as the previous bones
That
he
he-
found
that he
in the
found,
forest. Yeah.
So that's kind of strange.
Yeah. But there's a key scene when he finds this. The camera pans to an upper level of the home.
That's right, Rob. There's that noise. His attention's diverted, and then they do show that quick scene of the girls standing in that room.
The two little girls that we saw earlier.
That's right. And their faces are covered in the long matted blonde hair.
Right.
they had.
Or their faces are turned
Slightly, yeah. Cut to a scene of the old man.
Right.
This is where I was going with the whole found footage, not found footage, but the old film reel that he pulls out of the attic.
Right.
He pulls that out and he calls because he found out from the news that they were searching for this ethologist, right?
Right.
And so he decides to contact them and show them this film. And that was a kind of a freaky thing too. The film that he shows them is of the two girls sitting there in a room together, both in separate chairs and with their heads slightly downwards. He explains what happened, that these two girls were born in the village, and they were basically kept out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they were locked away.
Right.
Every once in a while they would hear screaming in the middle of the night, but then they realized that perhaps this village had a curse on it.
Right. Well, we do find that out. However, he does explain how he came upon the village. It was actually his regiment that invaded the village, okay, and then found out about the two girls.
Yes.
Okay? Now it does explain later on that he managed to burn down the village with his regiment. Now at this point, when the old man shows the film to the authorities and explains what he believes is going on in the village, he doesn't really explain that perhaps there would be ghosts.
He doesn't illustrate the danger.
He just tells them, look, this guy is there, he's trapped there. That's where you're going to find him. And he tells them just to take his word for it. Scene by scene, the dread, the tension is ratcheted up gradually. And at this point, we're in the last act, and we're really thinking that Marco is in danger from something. We know it's these girls. We don't know what the hell they are, feral children, or something else.
Well, the first night, I think, he spends in the village, he decides that, he's got to stay in there for his very survival. He finds a bedroom that is agreeable to him. He finds some old clothing, because his clothing is all wet. Right? It's completely drenched. So he finds some old rags and things and some jackets and whatever and blankets. And he decides he's going to spend the night, and he does. And there's a really effective scene while he's asleep in the bed. The camera pans over and looks down the stairwell. If you remember this. And right there, sitting on the stairs or standing on the stairs, are the two girls.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
It's really freaky.
Yeah. It's like they're waiting for something.
Yeah.
They're waiting for their moment to strike.
Yeah. So the next scene, he basically, goes into this old bar, the village bar, where he's found an old bottle of grappa, I'm assuming, right? Because if it was wine, it would have turned to vinegar by now. I think there's a stove in there,
right?
And he lights up a fire, and he sits down. I like this scene where he sits down and he notices some cards were left on the table,
right? And
he starts playing the hand that was left there.
And
of course, the cards are unrecognizable to North American eyes. Those are truly Friulan cards. Okay.
Yeah.
I know.
Friulan would be Northern Italian cards.
Well, Friuli is a region of Italy, just north of Venice, that is actually their language is not just a dialect, but is actually a completely different lost language. It's like the Welsh of Italy. So they're a very unique region of Italy.
Yes.
They combine a lot of different influences in their language, mostly because of all the borders that are nearby and all the trade.
So Bianchini mines his own culture.
His own culture, yeah. It's very interesting. And he plays a few hands of cards. I thought that was great. Now, they do cut away from this to the progress of the team that's searching for him. That's right. Right?
The rescue team.
And they're closing in on that area. I think they've come to the river, right? And they're somehow getting across that.
At this point, we see the authorities arrive in the village, and they have flashlights, torches, and they go up and investigate each building individually. Now, it's never really established in the film how many buildings are left standing in the village. We never have any expansive shots encompassing the entire town that's abandoned. We see individual buildings here and there, right?
We see down corridors. We see the scale is not given.
Yeah, which is kind of unusual because he arrives there and he's looking around, but we don't see anything from his perspective. So when the authorities get there, they're essentially just exploring building to building. And we follow them all throughout the buildings in real time. Personally, Bianchini could have saved us a hell of a lot of time by cutting these scenes down. He does start with the suspense, but he sort of hits it over the head in such a manner that we know Marco is not in this building. So what do why are we there with the authorities if we know Marco is not in it?
Where is Marco?
Yeah, where is Marco exactly? He disappeared. So we've now abandoned Marco completely, and we're following what?
It's the Italian version of Where's Waldo.
Okay.
Ma
Anyways,
dove c'è
following,
Marco?
yes. Anyways, we're following the authorities now, Conrad. So all throughout these buildings, okay, and the authorities are essentially finding all the scraps that Marco found, the bones, the blood stains.
Yeah, but before they get to deep within the village,
Right.
Marco has his last encounter.
Well, that wasn't much of an encounter, was it? Because we don't see what exactly he's encountering.
Well,
He sees the sheets moving back and forth in that one room.
Oh, there's a scene when he goes in there, and they're both sitting in there.
But we don't exactly see them head on, Conrad.
Oh, we
know that he knows that there's something in the room.
You don't remember the scene where they're sitting on those chairs, and he goes in there and he puts the flashlight on them?
That was a fleeting moment.
That was the
He
fleeting
sees-
moment?
Yes, that was
Okay.
one of the fleeting moments.
Wow.
He knows that he saw something in there, but he never gets a really good look.
Right, and then he goes through the sheets, and he
Mhm.
starts going mad. He starts...
Well, he's panicking.
He's
at this
fleeing.
point. Yeah.
And it seems like he can't get out of the room. He's running through the sheets,
Mhm.
which have little parts in them and little rips here and there. So
Right.
there are areas that you could cut through them,
Mhm.
right? But they're set up with, say, divided by about 4 feet or whatever. And there's a sheet after sheet after sheet. It's like someone's,
Laundry
put up their
display,
laundry
yeah.
or something. And he starts running through there and running backwards, and there's something following him, but you can't see it. And then it cuts, right?
Right.
It cuts.
After we hear a scream.
Yeah, we hear a scream.
Yeah.
It cuts, and now we're following the progress of the police or the rescue team.
They do finally, at one point, encounter.
The sheets.
Right.
Okay. That's one of them, though. One guy goes into that room.
Right.
Another fellow is going off into another direction, to another room upstairs or something.
Right.
The one that goes into the room, okay, into the sheet room, that's
Mhm.
a really good scene.
Yeah.
He's peering through the sheets, and he comes across something. He sees something on the floor. He peers through the sheet, and he sees a foot. Or a foot with a shoe still on it, half gnawed, right?
Right.
Looks a little bit further, sees the rest of the leg.
Right.
Looks a little bit more, and he sees the other leg. They're attached. That's
Mhm.
fine. The bottom from the knee down on one leg is all completely mangled.
Right.
Okay. Looks a little further through the next sheet, and he sees that the top part of the torso has been ripped
Right.
from the hip up. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's all mangled. And at that point, he basically tosses his cookies
Right.
or his pasta.
But what happens to the body? It just abruptly
Well,
disappears.
no.
It gets pulled
Yeah, he's looking at
back
it.
into the room.
This was really effective. The sound completely drops out of that scene.
Right.
It goes dead silent. And then this thing gets pulled.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, we're cutting to another scene.
Right.
Cutting to another scene of the other fellow going up a staircase with his flashlight in hand.
Mhm.
And what happens? He ends up getting a big strand of blondish white hair
Right.
stuck on him.
That's another motif
Yeah.
that periodically occurs in the latter last half of the film.
It's that they
Is
find hair.
the blonde hair.
Yeah, they find it on barbed wire. They find it on furniture. They find it on different areas. And then that fellow ends up finding what Marco found earlier in the film, which were those 2 frocks or whatever they were, gowns, little
Mhm.
children's gowns, hanging off a broom handle, dripping with water in what
That's
is
right.
what is for the most part a dry room.
We later find out through the old man that everyone has died. And
find
then
out from
we
the
hear
news-
it.
from the news
Well, yeah.
broadcast.
After that, we find out through the radio, the rescue team and Marco, the ethologist, well, yeah, they went missing, and then their remains later on were found.
Yeah.
And they haven't figured out exactly what the cause was for their demise.
That's right.
However, the old man has the theory, and that is the theory of these two little girls that he encountered 70 years ago. And that's where it's stated that there's no way that those girls could have survived or could be, for example, feral children. They're obviously ghosts or some sort of
because that would
supernatural
not follow
force.
the timeline properly.
Right. And it ends on that ominous note. My problem with the film, it could have very easily fit into a 40-minute
Yeah, it could have
running
been a
time.
shorter film, yeah.
We stay way too long with Marco and his investigations, from trap to trap, from camera to camera. We get it. We know what he does for a living. You don't have to tell us for the next half hour what he's doing or what he does. This can be accomplished in, about 15 minutes. And from there on, we can go to the plot of the film.
They pretty well established it in the first 15-20 minutes, what he did.
Oh, I don't know, Conrad. That went on and on and on. And I timed it, and I think it went on for about 40 minutes.
No, I'm saying, but in the first 15, we had already got it.
So
Yeah.
why belabor that point for the next 20?
That's what I was saying earlier. The film is rife with suspense,
Right.
but has no relief. Okay, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to give it, to take it to the next level. I mean, it does amp up. I'll give him that. But then the ending, I felt, was a little bit too fluffy.
See, Bianchini concentrates on atmosphere and mood throughout, with the aforementioned motif angle. Okay, so we have this sense of dread. It's a fine film in that it stays with you after the credits roll.
Yes.
However, overall it just seemed kind of unsatisfying to me.
I didn't think they needed the bit of narration at the end from the old man.
Or from the radio?
The radio, yes, you needed some kind of explanation as to what
Well, yeah,
happened.
some sort of closure as to
Yeah.
what exactly occurred.
But that last scene with the old man, you don't see him, we just hear his voice.
Right.
And then what do they show? They show again that scene of the two children's gowns floating down the river. The very same scene that Marco had observed earlier.
Right.
With that music, which was, I thought the soundtrack was excellent.
Yes, very good.
It was eerie and haunting, definitely moody. I just felt that the ending was, I don't know, just wasn't effective enough. It just kind of dissolves.
Yeah, there's not a strong enough denouement.
I still like the movie. I still.
Yeah, it makes a pretty good impression on your subconscious. There are images in it that exceed a lot of horror films on much larger budgets. He has a lot of talent, Conrad.
Yeah.
He just didn't have enough of a budget or enough of a plot to
Enough of a
fully
plot.
realize his concept.
I think his budget. I don't know. The film looked good.
Yes,
All
for
right.
what it was.
Those must be real ruins because there's no way they built that set. Okay.
No, those are existing ruins. I
Did you
believe.
do some research into that?
Yes, according to the director, that's actually right outside his hometown of Top in the province of Udine.
Top.
Top.
It's not Topolino or anything like that.
I think he called it Topolo.
Topolo. All right. Okay.
Right. And that's
Topolino's Mickey Mouse, by the way.
right. Exactly. Okay, Topolo is what he called it. So, in conclusion, you thought it made an impression.
Yes, definitely. It was.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed about 75% of this film.
Okay, how about the other 25?
It was just the last little bit, maybe even less than that. It's like maybe 5 to 10%. It's just the last. It's just the ending, really. That didn't really come
You
together
thought
for me.
it should have been stronger.
It should have been stronger at the ending. Yeah. Otherwise, I was on board. Right from the beginning, I enjoyed the mood. I enjoyed the cinematography. There's some great camera angles in this film.
Yeah.
Some great imagery. Soundtrack
I enjoyed
really
the
liked.
authentic locales.
Yeah.
You cannot buy that type of authenticity. Most people, they would take a look at those buildings, con it, and they would hightail it. I can take or leave some of these minimalist films. They're okay. And I'm talking about everything from some of the stuff that Mario Bava did with Twitch of the Death Nerve, to Jean Rollin and his vampire films, to this, where they use only existing locations and only a few characters. In this case, it was really only 2 characters. The only other people that come in are the rescue team toward the end. How many of those rescue team members were there?
Well, there was about 4 or 5 originally.
Right.
But they said in the radio announcement at the end that 3 of them were killed. I only saw
Okay.
2 of them killed in the final scenes.
Well, we do hear screams.
Quick
Yeah,
shots of the
they were
rescue
okay.
team.
Yeah. Well,
They looked real.
They
They
were
looked-
effective.
yeah.
Yes. Very much so. So it's a recommendation for Across the River from you. Know what you're getting into. It's there's not much of a plot going on here. It's heavy on suspense, heavy on atmosphere, and I do believe it's successful at that. Don't expect a hell of a lot of substance, and expect to be with a lone protagonist for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Expect to stick with it. It's a slow burn.
Yes.
I do believe that it pays off more than it doesn't. So I have to give it credit for Bianchini utilizing his resources to their maximum. So I would say a cautious recommendation from me. Okay, we know that you like it, but do you recommend it to the viewers?
I recommend it. I would tag on some caution that yes, it is a slow burn. Yes, you will be following a lone character. If that's not your thing, then you'll probably find this extremely boring. Otherwise, if you're like me, I have a great sense of curiosity. I like to figure out these things, and for me, it was enjoyable. Just the ending wasn't as fulfilling as I would have liked.
Okay. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome back to Radio Psychotropia. I'm Robert Black, and with me is Conrad the Mad Del Bianco.
Yes, Robert back. Like your friend Phil Rudd there.
Yeah, and and we're here to review Wolf Cop. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the return of the retarded werewolf.
Don't say, what do you say retarded for?
Canadian genre cinema is rarely light-hearted, and many of our horror films are some of the darkest in contemporary cinema. So when a film that promises cheap gore and juvenile laughs comes along, fans of our northern brand are likely to notice. I love pulp cinema and high concept, and you can't get any more high concept than small town cop turns into a werewolf and battles evil immortal devil cult. Wolf Cop is straight out of a Marvel comic. Not that it reminds me of any particular comic character, but we'll get to that later. The film's marketing campaign exudes a great time, from the fantastic Wolfman design and makeup to the retro 80s vibe that's currently in vogue. But what fascinates me about Wolf Cop's origin is not its pop culture roots. It's that its production was a result of director Lowell Deans winning a filmmaker competition, the prize being $1 million in production dollars, all largely based on a trailer. Frankly, it kind of shows. Although I had fun, I found it pretty uninspiring overall. The plot is surprisingly convoluted, and most of the characters never rise above stock caricatures. It kind of left me cold as I simultaneously attempted to get in the groove when Wolf Cop was tearing up criminals. The film does have heart, and I believe that's what saved it for me. Lou grows on you, and while he struggles with his personal demons and saves his town, you develop sympathy for him. I hope Wolf Cop 2 has a better, more fully realized screenplay next time out.
My God.
Is it almost time?
It's like a face. It kind of looks like you. Ooh, got to stop over at the brewery. Do some investigating.
Did you think I'm myself when I'm the wolf?
Listen, you did seem like freakishly strong. You had those claws and those teeth. Plus, you know, you were drunk, so I knew it was you.
Hello? Hello?
My, what big teeth you have. That's not all.
Lou, you're a wolf.
Mr. Del Bianco, can we have a synopsis for Wolf Cop, please?
Okay. Lou Garou is the alcoholic deputy of Woodhaven, a town with a missing pet problem, a string of burglaries, odd crimes, murder, and wouldn't you know it, an authentic satanic cult. Lou is kidnapped and branded with a pentagram symbol by mysterious robed figures. He awakens with the problems that a stiff drink can't cure. His facial hair, for instance, grows faster than he can shave it, and his senses are definitely heightened. When lunar influences bring out the beast in him, local conspiracy theorist Willie is quick to recognize a wolf in cop's clothing. Lou uses his curse to clean up the town, but in doing so he attracts the attention of the secret cult. They have a taste for wolf's blood, and Lou is the only one in town.
Okay, Conrad, initially I had a lukewarm reaction to this film. The problem I have with it right off the bat is its juvenile nature. Okay, granted, something like Wolf Cop, you're not expecting Shakespeare going in, but you're not expecting something as childish or as infantile is what I believe I received from watching it. It's entertaining, I'll give it that much. It just seems kind of superficial. The dramatic situations, they have no gravitas. They don't really involve you. The characters are kind of cardboard cutouts. This was your idea, buddy. How do you justify reviewing this film?
No. First of all,
yes. First of all, this was your idea. I'm sorry, but this was your idea.
That's fine. Okay, fine. Okay. Put it on me. But you did agree to it.
Okay, I agreed. I initially agreed to it. Yes, I did.
Both on board for this.
Hey, I'm all for supporting Canadian content, folks. So yeah, but I didn't quite know.
We were both on board for this film. Okay?
Yeah, that's
and we needed something that was a little bit lighter to pair up with Across the River. Anyway, need something to be.
Well, we could have had a roughie in there, but you know, I guess
you didn't have
Wolf
anything
Cop.
prepared at the time, so
That's true. That's very true. Wolf Cop is a very entertaining film. Don't get me wrong.
I thought Leo Fafard was actually quite likable as the main character.
He was a saving grace for the film, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was very likable. I thought his delivery of the lines was very good and very keeping with the spirit of the film. The film quickly finds its rhythm visually, and showed a lot of comedic promise right out of the gate. Right. However, later on, you kind of realize that it's just kind of juvenile humor. I think
it's very uninspired, Conrad.
Well, they find that.
Well, here's my problem. A lot of the plot seems to be lifted from the Marvel comic Werewolf by Night. Okay, and there's also certain aspects that seem to have been very similar to a recent novel called Being Frank, which also dealt with a werewolf cop. Now, perhaps these are coincidences, maybe not. I'm not saying anyone plagiarized anyone else. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is these things look glaringly similar, especially Werewolf by Night, which had a very similar cult which kidnapped the werewolf by night and intended to sacrifice him for his blood, which would grant the cult 100 or 200 years of life. Does that sound similar to you? Now, it is an entertaining film, pretty unique in that most Canadian horror films, and let's face it, are very grim affairs with very little humor. There's not too many Canadian horror comedies, and this is pretty heavy on the comedy. There's really no horror in this film, other than a few gore
just
scenes.
The transformation scenes.
Well, even the transformation scene, Conrad.
Well, the first one?
Yeah.
Where the guy's taking a piss?
Yeah.
And they show his Johnson transform?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what
I mean.
That's where they got their R rating right there.
Yeah,
right?
Well, obviously, yes. But that's another.
They have a lot of small little comic elements in there, like the details that you see popping up, like the name of the local watering hole.
Right.
The tooth and nail.
Right.
Right, and then he finds that skin mag in the middle of the forest called Boober.
Right.
You know, it's things like that. I thought added to the silliness of the film. Even that line where his friend sits him down to show him a tape, and he's like, "Please tell me this is the Bigfoot sex tape." Right. I thought things like that was just kept it light and kept it kind of fun and moving along.
Right.
I guess where I was disappointed was the fact that it didn't really progress from there. It just sort of stayed in one place.
Right.
And moved forward, yes, with a very convoluted plot that didn't really need to be.
Well, here's the other bone of contention. It's a very simple plot, but they convolute everything.
They make it complicated, yes.
Right. There's no real recourse to untangle the plot. when the plot itself is simplistic from the beginning, yet all of a sudden it becomes so confused at one point. You're trying to figure out, well, is there something more to this? And then at the end you figure out, no, there wasn't. There really was not anything more to this.
Well, there's scenes that happen in the film, I think,
Right.
that they thought we're just going to make it cool, right?
Right.
Because it's Wolf Cop, right?
Right.
Already it's funny off the coming out of the gate, right? Wolf Cop. That's just funny, right? They
Yes.
had my vote at Wolf Cop.
Yeah, it's a great
Okay.
premise.
It is.
If you get over the ridiculous and the absurdity of it, yes. So long as you catch them in that, you go with it. You want to have fun. Let's
You
put
do.
it that way.
You want to be around
From the
for
get-go.
ride. Yeah.
But okay, go ahead.
Well, this doesn't make any sense. There's a part where he transforms his vehicle into his Wolf Cop vehicle just for the sake of having this car that was kind of cool and different, right? Like, it didn't
Right.
make any sense, really.
Whatsoever,
It didn't
yeah.
advance the plot at all. No one really commented on it later, so I don't know how he, went back to being a deputy with that car of his. Like,
Yeah.
the doors pulled off and the thing put sideways and the big W thrown on there.
Right.
I thought that they were just trying to cash in on the whole, weirdness of it all.
Yeah.
Some of the scenes didn't even make sense. Like, there's a scene where the bartender has sex with him.
Sarah Lind, yeah.
Yeah, while he's a wolf, for no reason. There wasn't a reason why she had to do that. I thought that she was doing that to subdue him, to do something, but no. It was just a sex scene between a wolf and this lady. Which,
Right.
could that be considered bestiality?
Possibly, maybe.
So,
Yeah.
so they had that scene, and it didn't really advance the plot, like I was saying. It just kind of...
Well, did it show any nudity? I don't even recall much nudity in that at all.
but they had Larry Gowan's These Moonlight Desires playing
Oh,
in the
yeah,
background.
yeah.
So you had your
Of course
80s,
you had
your
that,
nod
yeah.
to the 80s there. So that's also, fashionable.
Yeah, we really needed that. We didn't need Sarah Lynn's boobs,
No.
but we really needed Gowan in
Yeah,
there
Gowan.
somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my God, These Moonlight Desires. Scene was probably the funniest scene, where he's shaving and the stubble grows back instantaneously.
Right.
His heightened sense of smell and hearing were a little bit. That was a little bit confusing to me, because I thought that he would only have that if he was a wolf, the actual wolf. But in human form, he was having all kinds of problems with that. So.
Well, yes, a lot of characters in werewolf films, though, experience sensory overload or heightened senses to indicate that they're not exactly human, and this is a reoccurring theme. So it wasn't surprising to me. However, I can see how that may be a little unusual to some people out there who are not used to it.
Yeah, there's also the question of the shapeshifters. They are playing multiple characters in the film.
Yeah.
The chief of police, or the sheriff, is actually one of the shapeshifters, who also appears as the local town thug.
Well, here's the interesting component in this film. There's a town-wide conspiracy going on. Apparently the town has been the hub of a satanic cult for around 150 years. The cult has survived by creating werewolves where they would later on sacrifice for their mystical properties, for their blood, in fact. They would drain them of their blood, and through the werewolf blood, they would live another century or so. And that has been going on for quite a while.
A couple hundred years, yeah.
Yeah, at least. So that's pretty interesting. I love pulp films, and this one fit right in. The only problem I can see is I recognized the plot again from Werewolf by Night, and that kind of threw me off. I expected something else. I expected perhaps the plot to go into another direction. If these cult members gain longer life through werewolf's blood, why wouldn't they remain young? Why wouldn't they remain in a young form? Why wouldn't the mayor remain as the bartender and not switch back and forth?
The mayor is old.
Yeah.
And the bartender
elderly, yes.
is young.
Yes.
And
she switches back and forth, that we found out later.
Yeah.
By the way, spoilers, folks, but you know that from our podcast before, right?
Yeah, we're full of those.
Yeah. Full of something.
Yeah, that just, well, the thing is, part of the plot was Lou Garou's father was the last person to be sacrificed.
Right.
Okay, or so
Yes.
he figures out. And that was only maybe, 20 years previous. So is it every 20 years that they have to do this? Like what's the point
I would
here?
assume every generation.
Yeah, so they have to basically create their own werewolf, drink its blood, and then live for another 20 years.
Yes.
And in this little town that doesn't even have anything going for it, in Canada.
That's what's very unusual. Why would this cult stay in this little nothing town? Now, the film was shot in Regina, Saskatchewan, and it's very obvious that it's shot in Regina.
Yeah, it looks like any town, Canada.
It looks like a city, Conrad. I think part of it was shot in Moose Jaw as well.
Moose Jaw.
Yeah.
That thriving metropolis.
Exactly. Anyways, I'm sorry to offend any Saskatchewan fans, but you know where you live. Okay. It doesn't make sense that the cult would remain in a very small town. They would attract attention eventually if they keep sacrificing people every generation. Also, the town, for such a small town, assumably, is in the middle of a crime wave. You have burglaries, you have strange crimes. It's a small town. These things do not happen in a small town. A burglary in a suburb of Toronto does not go unnoticed by the media. In this small town, there's a regular bloody crime wave going on.
Yeah.
Seems to be quite constant too.
Three Little Pigs. That was another stab at comedy for them.
Yeah.
That the three burglars that were raiding these local convenience stores, the Liquor Donuts place, actually wore pigs masks. So that was again another little comedic bump along the road there.
Yeah, I didn't really laugh at that.
Yeah, there was nothing there. That wasn't really that fun.
As you can tell, I'm kind of underwhelmed by this film. But there's really nothing to latch on to in this film. It's got a very simplistic plot, comedy, simplistic. The only fleshed out character was Lou Garou. Everyone else is a stock character. Even a couple of the comments. I believe his partner, his female partner, after his first transformation,
That's right.
Lou breaks right out of his skin, and his partner finds his flesh mask in the aftermath.
Yeah, and says, "This kind of looks like you."
Well, she does an accent.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you notice the accent sounded like a native Indian?
I didn't really quite catch that.
I kind of caught that. I've
right,
known,
right.
yeah,
This is
I've known
Lou.
several. I've known several native Indians in
I
my
like
life.
to drink. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was really not fucking funny.
Yeah. Offensive, yes.
Yeah, a little bit. The point is, that accent that she did, or that voice that she did, sounded like several native Indians that I've known throughout my life. So there's a little bit of that in this film. Some people might consider that type of humor refreshing because you don't see it in mainstream cinema. It's only refreshing if it's funny. It really wasn't.
Well, the best character in this film was actually Willie, in terms of
You think so?
comedic value. I thought he was just
He
kind of a
played
goofy
one of those
kind of
fucking
guy.
stoner knobs in, what was it, Fubar.
Oh, was he in Fubar?
No, he
No,
wasn't
he
in
wasn't one of the
Fubar. He
guys
wasn't
in
in
Fubar.
Fubar, but
Oh,
he was
like the guy
channeling.
in Fubar,
Yeah, he
okay.
was channeling one of those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. Well, I saw him in
So
that
really,
film.
it's a Canadian stereotype.
Well,
He was channeling it all the way, and I think that the script really needed a rewrite from a more accomplished writer to flesh it out. It's a very forgettable film, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That Conrad wanted to review.
It's not. Listen, folks. This is Rob trying to make up for the fact that he actually picked this film with me.
No, I did not.
Yes, he did.
No.
Well, Rob's.
My exact
you're a
words
lying
were
bastard,
Conrad. No,
okay?
I am
That's
not.
what you are.
I am not Conrad.
Yes, you are.
No, I am not.
Tell the people
No.
why you wanted to change
First of
this
all,
film.
First of all, Conrad. Yeah, I found a better film to bloody
No, that's not
showcase. Yes, I did.
No,
I
that's-
found a better film to showcase.
When did
and-
you find that better film?
I
Like
actually
a week
found-
ago?
Well, yeah, okay, a week ago.
Yeah.
The point is, I found
had
it.
Wolf Cop.
I found it. Okay, that's fine, Conrad. I found it a week ago. I'm not going to mention the film right now because then you're going to want that review instead of this one, or what passes for this one. I really didn't see anything in this film that I particularly enjoyed. After I saw the film, I was entertained. It kept my attention, really. And we're on our second bottle of wine right now, so I'm pretty blunt with my opinion. But I didn't enjoy it after I thought about it for a few minutes, and I said, you know what? This is for 13-year-olds. If you're 13 years old, maybe you might get something out of it. If you're older than that, then you'll see it as an amusing diversion, but nothing more. I'm quite surprised that so many distributors worldwide went nuts for this film. They probably love the concept, and that's fine. And the concept carried it to a very, very interesting and very unexpected financial success. And that's great. I love it when a Canadian film, Canadian genre film
Break down those
specifically,
barriers, yeah.
right, gets international success. I'm all for it. But I'm sorry, the film did nothing for me. Conrad here kept insisting on reviewing it.
Yeah. Laugh it up, Fuzzball. Listen,
Okay.
I'll tell you how this film got sold internationally.
Okay.
Did you
Elaborate.
see the poster?
Yes.
Did you see the poster for
Yeah.
Wolf Cop?
That's all we needed. Yes.
That's neat,
Yes.
Okay? You don't need to see a second of footage. All you do is look at that poster. And it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what Robert Evans, okay, the very famous film producer
Right.
who brought us Godfather.
Who would fuck 10 prostitutes simultaneously?
Yes,
Correct.
yes. That, the very
That
same.
producer,
the
yes.
very same.
Correct.
Okay, when he sold the film The Cotton Club,
Mhm.
okay, he knew it was a piece of shit. He knew he was going to have problems with it. Okay,
Right. Mhm.
There were already problems starting to happen. When he sold it, he worked on a poster for it for a couple weeks with a couple designers. Okay,
Right.
he got the poster done, and that's how he presented it at his sales meeting. Okay, he showed the poster and he said, I want you to look at this poster. I want you to take a good look at it. Forget about everything else that we've been talking about. So look at this poster. And I guarantee you the film is as good as this poster. Okay? It's no better, it's no worse, but this is it. This is the film right here. And I believe that's how they sold Wolf Cop. Okay? I know that they won a contest and all that stuff, but that's basically how they sold it to distributors. They showed them that poster, which is of, the wolf in a cop's outfit. It's a great poster. Okay?
Yeah,
I
it's
have
a great
one of the
poster.
small ones.
The art is done by a British artist, the Dude Designs, and he is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And they showed them that, and they said, this is it. This is the film. Are you on board? Yes or no?
Well,
Okay.
at that point, they already had the financing in place. So the distributors that saw it, I would assume at the American film market, they didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to pony up any pre-sale money. They just had to buy the bloody thing.
Yeah.
That's it. Based on the poster, the marketing campaign. It was an easy sell.
Yeah. The trailer's actually pretty good, too. If you watch the trailer, it's fun.
Yeah, very good.
And you're sold.
Hmm.
Uh,
Then you see the film.
Then you see the film. And even though I had fun watching this film, I had to agree with my co-host Rob that it's rather lacking in a lot of areas. It doesn't leave a lingering taste in your mouth. It doesn't give you anything to really settle back and reminisce about.
It's very forgettable.
Yeah, you could follow it along. You like the main character, and that's all fine. I liked the other guy, Willie, also because I saw him in that film Goon, and I liked him in that. He played a French-Canadian goalie. He was hilarious.
Right.
So maybe I had some admiration for him that carried over into this film. But otherwise, those were, the film was just fun to watch at first, and then upon, pondering it and reviewing it in your head, you come to the same conclusion I think that you and I have come to.
Yeah. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, we really did not elaborate on the intricacies of the plot. That's because there really isn't any. A layabout cop encounters a mysterious group in the woods. He wakes up with a pentagram carved on his chest.
Yeah.
And from there on, he becomes a wolf cop, and he proceeds to clean up the town.
Yeah, which I covered in the synopsis already.
Right,
So.
exactly. You already fucking covered that. So what the hell what elaboration do you need from this? There's really nothing else. There's no subtext to the film. It's very superficial. It's fun. It's pulp cinema. And it's very unusual to see a film like this in the Canadian cinematic landscape.
So tell me, Rob, what did you think about the 80s nostalgia in this film?
80s nostalgia is pretty much in vogue, and it's been that way among 80s babies that grew up to be filmmakers for a while now. What they forget in these 80s exploitation films went for broke. They were not encumbered by political correctness. It didn't exist at that point. They had plenty of nudity, and the nudity itself was pretty degrading to women. The nudity in this film does not exist. There really is no nudity. Sarah Lind is a very attractive woman, and she's actually a good actress. She's the only recognizable actor, at least to me, that I noticed in this film. But really there's no nudity in this film, other than from the wolf cop himself, which was actually a fake appendage that you see transforming at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sort of skips over in that way these films sort of chicken out on.
Yeah, they gloss over those aspects. They just
don't film them.
They just give a nod to that, to whatever's
that,
fashionable,
yes, correct.
At the moment.
Right.
And ride that.
Yeah. The group Astron 6, which did the recent film The Editor, are actually more courageous in that respect. They show plenty of nudity. They're not afraid to offend people. Their film Father's Day had anal rape, and it was pretty explicit in one scene. If you're going to try and mine 80s exploitation cinema, go for broke. That's what I say. Wolf Cop had a fair share of gore, but it was lighthearted. It wasn't sleazy. It wasn't overdone, but there's nothing grotesque about any of these scenes. They're kept lighthearted throughout. So in that sense, it actually fails as an 80s nostalgia piece. How about you, Connor?
I'd have to concur. There were some gross scenes, I guess. There was a face being ripped off.
Right.
And a couple
I remember that,
things.
yeah.
They used the other...
That was a great effect, I'll give them that.
That was good effect.
Yeah.
The guy getting his eye plugged out with a knife
Right.
was interesting, but again, just kind of quick. I just felt that they cashed in on so many different things that were fashionable.
I think what they needed is they needed to commission a really good screenwriter to flesh out this concept. I hope the sequel, and I know a sequel has been announced to this film, I hope they fare better with it than the original film itself.
Maybe they'll have another song by Gowan in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can expect too much unless the effects go through the roof.
Well, I expect Honeymoon Suite in the fucking suite.
Or Platinum Blonde.
That's right.
Yeah.
Both Honeymoon Suite and Platinum Blonde. I'm sorry, Gowan was okay, but I'd rather have the other Canadian. And Glass Tiger. You cannot forget Glass Tiger. I actually knew the drummer from Glass Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They played my school.
Yeah, my friend's cousin knew the drummer from Glass Tiger. We were introduced once.
Oh yeah.
Way fucking.
They played
back
my high
when
school
we were kids.
the night they changed their name to Glass Tiger.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they used
That's
to be
funny.
called Tokyo or something. I don't know, something.
something
Something
inconsequential.
Asian,
Yeah. Okay. So enough of that crap.
So recommendations?
You know what? Get good and drunk. It's worth a watch. Yeah, good and drunk.
So that you
it's worth
can't
a watch.
remember anything.
So, Mr. Del Bianco, recommendation?
Not really. I think if you want something light and you are just going to have some fun and you're going to
See something else.
You see
See
something
Toxic
else.
Avenger.
Well, if you're going to pair this movie with something else and
Yeah.
just kind of throw it into in a mismatch of whatever drunken horror themed movies, then yeah, sure, then throw it in there. But make sure it's sandwiched between two other good films. That way you'll
Right,
get
yeah.
the most.
I
out
can
of
live
it.
with that, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not complaining.
Oh, great. Excellent. Well, this is Conrad Del Bianco.
And this is Robert Black. Thank you for joining us.